Hello, and good evening, good afternoon, good morning, whatever time of day it is that you are tuning in and watching this. Welcome to your wake up call. My name is Marc Caron, and I am here today to discuss really whatever you want to discuss today because the world again, with this whole thing that's been going on in terms of COVID and what's happening around the world. We're seeing a lot of different things happening in many different areas in the world, and I'd really be curious to know what's happening with you in your part of the world. So if you are watching, we're going to post the link to this broadcast in the comments, and I invite you to join me if you have any questions, anything you'd like to discuss, anything you'd like to take a look at and see how we can navigate and find ways to deal with whatever it is you're dealing with in a way that really you know enhances your life versus detracting from it. And that's kind of what's happening in the world today. Here, I'm coming to you from Vancouver, British Columbia, and things are certainly changing here in Canada. First, I want to thank PMC Global and PSSM Society as well for the opportunity to have this program on their channel and to share with you, some of the things that, I love to talk about, love to share, and love to inspire people to create a better everyday life for themselves and for the people around them. Now, I'm not sure where you are, where you're watching. I know this is a global program. And coming from Vancouver, British Columbia, it's really been interesting to see what's been happening in the world today, especially with COVID. You got the elections down in the US and all sorts of, what I would call kind of crazy happening in the world today because the world is not what we used to think that it was. And people are, one of the common phrases that we keep hearing is, we can't wait till things get back to normal. And I don't think things will ever get back to what we thought were normal. And normal is an interesting word as well, where even when things were what we would consider normal, they weren't really normal because everybody has a different life, right? What's normal to you, what's normal to me can be two very, very different things. And when we talk about normal, I think it really comes down to what it means we're comfortable with. And right now in today's world, we're, so uncertain of what's coming down the pipe next. What's going to happen in government controls, what's going to happen, with our family and friends, with employment, with our businesses, and what that is. And depending where you are in the world today, we're on here in Vancouver and British Columbia, here in Canada. Some people call it the third wave or maybe the second wave of what's going on because it is flu season. And we've been seeing a lot of, serious spikes in COVID tests and the number of reported cases. And from what I'm seeing, because I do my best not to be too tapped into mainstream news, we're seeing that this is happening around the globe again as well. And I'm curious, really, as you're watching, how is this affecting you? Has this affected you from the beginning, with the lockdowns, with, employment or business concerns? Is this concerning you more now with what's going on? Here in Vancouver, really what's been happening is it's mandated masks in all public spaces. There's asking us not to, have people to our homes to visit, not to go visit people in their homes. And, this is all to reduce the spread of the coronavirus. And I think that it's an interesting time because there's so much unknowns, and what's next. And I can speak, really directly for myself that, this has probably been the most impactful month since this whole pandemic has started. in regards to what it is I do and what's happening and where people are at. Because partly I think people are just getting tired. People are tired with what's happening and what's going on, and we're all waiting for the new normal, waiting for it all to be over. When will that be? And I paused because we don't really know. Nobody really knows what's next. I just watched a documentary today, actually, in regards to this plan that has been happening for 1993, I believe, from the United Nations, where there was a plan to, you know, they're even using the word now in mainstream media, the global reset, the economic reset, and the way they're looking to change the way the world is working, redistributing the wealth. And I'm always skeptical of to the truth to what's going on and what's happening in the world, because depending on who you ask and where you look, you're going to get answers that really kind of validate what it is you believe. It's kind of that, time and true principle of whatever you focus on, you'll find. And if you're looking for evidence for conspiracy, you're going to find that. If you're looking for evidence of science, you're going to find that. Whatever it is you're looking for, we will find evidence to support it, whether it's right or wrong. And I think the most important thing today is that we really support and take care of each other and ourselves first and foremost, and to have a good mindset and to know that, this too shall pass, and how we make the best of a situation where we don't know what's going on. As an events organizer and planner, it's been very different for me because, we've been kind of waiting for things to get back to normal. And that's not happening. It's actually taken a step back where it's been even worse than it was in the early spring. So, that's been very challenging. And what I'm seeing, as well as, as an events organizer where we love to build community and create transformational events for people so that they can, expand their consciousness, so they can have openings in their life, in their body, in their mind, in their spirit to create transformation. And, we're seeing people are getting, what do they call that? Screen fatigue, Zoom fatigue, computer fatigue. And I get it because I'm that guy too, right? I spend a lot of my time, in front of the computer, in front of a camera, in front of Zoom, having meetings and doing a number of different things. And I got to say, I really enjoy the interaction and to be able to connect and communicate with people, not just locally. What thrills me the most is when I'm able to connect with people from around the world, people such as yourself. And if you're watching now, we've got some information, some links here in the comments down below. And I invite you to join me because I'd really love to have a conversation with real people in real time about what's really happening for them in their world. What's really been great about, the pandemic. And some people might think, well, that's kind of a stupid statement saying what's great about the pandemic. Yet, I believe that there are always three sides to every coin. So, what's not good about the pandemic is, people are getting sick and people are dying. It's shutting down businesses. It's doing a whole bunch of different things. And then, the other side of the coin is what's good about it. Have you had a chance to take care of your health, take care of your mindset, take care of your body? Have you found new ways of doing things? You might have started a new business. You may have, found new ways to adjust and adapt your business. And one of the things I've done is actually created a new productions company that's focusing specifically on live stream and live events. So what's good out of it for me is finding new ways to navigate the world today, and how do we do business, how do we reach more people. And for me, that's one of the big things, and one of the blessings that has come out of this is expanding our reach in terms of our community so that we can literally reach more people. And when we're doing events and we have people coming in from around the world, we've had people from New Zealand, from all different parts of the United States, all different parts of Canada. We've had people from Korea all join our different online events. And I say this because it's interesting to see how people are reaching out and looking for new things to do and new ways of doing things. And that's what I want to inspire everybody here today is if you can find a new way of doing something, it might be reinventing yourself, it might be reinventing your family, reinventing your home, reinventing your business or your employment. This is the time. If it's a global reset, let's make it an individual and personal reset for yourself as well. Because now is the time for us to take these opportunities to find out new and better ways to do things. And it's tough. They're talking, upwards of 40% of small businesses in the next couple of months are literally going to shut down for good. And that's here in Canada. It's a Canadian statistic. But it does go to show the impact that the measures of this pandemic have been having on, regular people who have their own businesses, people who are going to work, and even people who have jobs because businesses hire people, right? And if that business shuts down, then has a huge economic impact, not just on the business owners, but on their employees too. So it's really important to find new and innovative ways to do things. And one of the things that we saw in the early spring was the big surge in gardening and planting and growing your own vegetables, your own crops. And I think that it's a really great lesson that we can take moving forward. And, if you've got kids and family and things out there, I strongly suggest, finding ways to teach them, different ways of doing things. Because one of the things my grandfather, I'm French and Dutch, and my grandfather one time as we were talking about life and he was sharing about the history of our family, he was saying how his father always said, have a piece of land or live in a home or a house that has a yard where you can always grow your own food. And that really struck me because it was something that I kind of took for granted, never, kind of living or growing up in a war zone or, being affected by war in that way where, my parents, my grandparents, and their parents were all affected by, the world wars in the early 1900s, the, 1940s as well. So it was a very, very different time. And now, we're in this world of, especially if you take a look at post-World War II, when people, the natural resources and food, everything was so scarce. And it was all about taking care of the troops and taking care of the homeland and everything else, where, we never saw that. I never saw that growing up as a Canadian. So I find it interesting how some of the things we take for granted, like the abundance of food in a supermarket. How about the abundance of toilet paper in a supermarket or a drugstore? And what happened in the spring when this all came down? What people are, finding and deeming to be most important. And I thought toilet paper was a really interesting one. Why aren't they stocking up on canned goods and, foodstuffs and dried goods of that nature versus toilet paper? So, to me, that's just an interesting mindset in terms of our culture these days. Now, as we move forward, we take a look at where we're at, and it's like, what makes sense to you? What really makes sense to you, and feel it, because your body knows, our spirit knows. We are mind, body, and spirit. And for those of you watching, I'm sure you're believers that we are spirit having a human experience versus, being human and just having a human experience. We're having this experience in today's world at this time for a specific reason. And I believe whether you call it a global reset, is what our Prime Minister here in Canada, Trudeau, is talking about. And we're seeing it now globally come up with politicians talking about this global reset. And I think it is an interesting time to be aware of. And it's in the same time that, the people on the other side of that coin are talking about, the Great Awakening. So are we having a Great Awakening? Are we having a Great Reset? Maybe we're having both, right? We take a look at the politics down in the United States, not something I generally like to get into, but there's a lot of unrest and unease still down in the United States in regards to what's happening. And it's these uncertainties that come up for people. Are we having a great reset, or are we having a great awakening? Think about it for a second. Because I happen to think part of the Great Awakening is really a global reset. And, there's plans and things in place and politics, things that I think we don't really ever know the full truth on. We can do our own research. We can take a look. There's a lot of information online of what's going on in the world today. But it's like, how do you believe what you're, what's really true? Because there's so much interesting information out there that validates everything that we're seeing and hearing. If you're on the left, there's evidence that acknowledges that. If you're on the right, there's evidence that acknowledges that. And in the meantime, we stand here or sit here and wonder, what does that mean for me? What does that mean for us as individuals? Excuse me. And I think what's really important is that probably the most important thing is to remain true to what's true to you. I'm going to be honest with you, and I'll say it right. I'm not much of a masker. It's not my thing. I don't go out a lot. I keep pretty close to home, not because I'm afraid or any other reason, other than the reason that I actually don't have any real reason to go out a lot. I need groceries. I need to go to the store every now and again, and sometimes I do go visit friends and get out. Yet, I'm not fully missing the connection, because I'm connected to a lot of people, both online, in person, and I can only imagine what it would be like to be if you live by yourself. If you're isolated, you might lose your job or your work, because I've met some of these folks out there, and they're having a really, really hard time. So in this global reset, in this great awakening, this is a time that we can really take to go within and find the present moment and this oneness within each and every one of us. And to respect that as different as we all are, we are also all the same. We have the same needs. We have the same desires. We literally, have the same want and need to be loved, appreciated, respected, and feel that we're valued, and what we do makes a difference. And that comes down to our family, our community, and our work. And think about it. Today, you're not allowed to go visit your family. You're not allowed to go, when it comes down to work, you have to be really careful. And society, it's this mask thing, which is where I'm circling back around to, where I'm more of an anti-masker than anything, because I haven't felt the need. And now it's mandated everywhere we go. If we go into a store, we go, and wherever it is, we need to wear a mask. And I know for myself, I actually find it really taxing when I put a mask on and I've got to breathe, and I'm working and I'm doing some different things. I find it very difficult to breathe. My glasses fog up, and I'm thinking, does this really work? That's what I'm thinking. I'm asking myself, why am I doing this? I'm doing this because I'm told to do it, not because I want to, not because I'm afraid of getting sick, not because I feel it's going to help me. I actually personally, it's my own personal belief with everything I've seen that masks are really actually more detrimental to our health in wearing those, especially long term. I think for a short amount of time, it's not such a big deal. But is it really working? Because here's the one interesting thing I want people to wake up to the possibility of, and it's just a question. We have the most COVID reports and positive cases lately here in British Columbia, and we're wearing more masks than we've ever worn before. Even when this first happened, we never wore a mask to the degree that we're wearing a mask today. And these are things that just make me pause and go, something to think about. How do you feel when you wear a mask? Do you feel safe? Do you feel controlled? Do you feel manipulated? Can you breathe? Can you breathe well or better? You know, I do know people who actually are medically exempt from wearing a mask, and they still get a hard time if they go somewhere and they're not wearing a mask. And then I also find that there's all these hypocrisies where you can jam people on a bus on, public transit. Everybody's wearing a mask, they're not 6 feet apart. Yet you can't go into a store where there's nobody and not wear a mask. Right? So these are the things that just always make me go, something to think about. And what is it that makes anyone feel certain or safe? Because most of us, we're driven by fear, right? We have the top two fears, and I've shared this in the past with some of our programs. Excuse me. Our top two fears that are innate in everyone. And that's fear that we're not enough. We're not rich enough, tall enough, smart enough, good looking enough, attractive enough, whatever it might be. We're not enough. And when we're not enough, it means that we won't be loved, right? And these are the two, primary fears that really control all of us. And, you got fear of death, fear of dying, fear of all of those things. And I think that's part of what's happening with the mask thing. If we take a look statistically with COVID, the numbers are less than 1% of people dying. And from what I'm thinking and what I'm seeing, what I understand, these numbers are no worse than the regular flu every year. So what's really going on? And I just want people to wake up to start asking the questions and be curious. Right? And one of the biggest questions is, does this all make sense? Does it make sense? And for me, the answer is it doesn't make sense. And I can't even really tell a story, as to how to make it make sense. Because as human beings, right, we are meaning makers. We are always looking to make a meaning to something so that we can feel better about the situation, the interaction, the conversation, whatever that is, we make a meaning. And we can have an experience. We can share the exact same experience with another person. And we can give that experience completely different meanings because we're meaning makers, right? So when we're making meaning, are we making a meaning that is inspiring, uplifting, freeing, motivating, is good for you, is good for others, serves the greater good? Is this kind of meaning that we're giving our situation? Because really, nothing has any meaning except the meaning you give it. It's just a happening. This situation happened, right? Whatever it is, fill in that blank. It happened. What it means is totally up to you. And we make those meanings based on our values, based on our beliefs, based on our experiences. Because as we take a look in our minds and we look back to when things happen, in our present situation. We look back for a similar situation and we go, oh, well, this happened then. Well, do that. What does that mean? So we start adapting meanings because we've been conditioned to these meanings, and we may have been conditioned through our own experience, from our own emotional patterns, through our culture, society, religion, school. Could be anywhere. It could just be peer pressure. One of the most powerful, influential ways that a lot of young people make really crappy decisions is through peer pressure, right? I know I did. I realized from my own self for many, many years, for a long time, the reason I did what I did was to meet my need for connection. I traveled a lot and moved around a lot when I was a young boy and, adolescent, and I had to be good at making friends. So I was all about connecting. So I found ways in everything I did to connect. Now, knowing what I know now, I would have done some different things to connect with some different people, because there was a few years of my life where I certainly wasn't necessarily, hanging out with the right people, making the best decisions. Yet when I look back on my life, I took a look back and said, why did I do this? Because, you can't change what you don't acknowledge, and it's about understanding where you're at. And I realized everything I did was about connection. And when I take a look in the world today and what's happening, people want to be connected. There's the people who are, really working hard. They want to stay connected to doing the right thing for COVID. Then there's the people who are totally anti-COVID, and they're doing all sorts of things, but they're connected in different ways, right? And what I think is interesting is the amount of, because one of our primary human needs, or psychological human needs, are a need for connection and love. And what's happening, again, that word social distancing, that social distancing is separating us. It's keeping us apart. It's keeping us from talking and connecting and understanding and appreciating each other. Whereas, you get these people who, all these, anti-COVID people, all the, what we might call rebels, but I got to say, I'm really grateful for these people who are standing up and sharing what they believe is their truth, because I think the world needs to hear it. I think we need to know that there is a difference in what people are believing, what people are perceiving, what people are understanding in the world. And, I don't want to make people wrong in terms of what they're saying, thinking, feeling, doing, because you have to do what feels right and what's best for you, your family, and your community, and the people that are around you. And I also think it's important that, if you want to protect yourself, I think it's important to protect yourself. But let's not do it out of fear. Let's do it out of a proactive solution so that we can end this change sooner than later. Because we're going on to, we're in our 11th month now. We're going into 9 months of kind of what's been happening with, the pandemic. And that's really what I'm talking about today, because, my life's been affected by it more and more as time goes on, especially now that we can't even convene and have small groups of people together. We can do events in terms of larger halls, but the economy of scale doesn't work. People are charging, everybody's trying to make a living, and then all of a sudden it's not, and all of a sudden you can't get 500 people into an event. It makes it much more difficult when you can only get 75. So, it's just one of those things that, this is how we adapt. And how do we do it? We do it online. That's one of the ways. I've been watching some of the world's best do some really powerful, influential, life-changing, and transforming conferences, workshops, seminars online, and I know that it can be done. And I'm asking people, if you're watching this today, take a look around. What can you do differently? How can you make today even better than yesterday? Because I ask myself that every day. And, we're all human. We have good days, we have bad days. And, I come from a world of peak performance and everything else, and which I also believe is highly overrated, because if we're not happy or satisfied or fulfilled in our life, we can achieve as much as we want. Yet if we're not happy about it and deem ourselves successful, then is it really success? And success without fulfillment, quite frankly, is not success. So are you fulfilled? And I got to tell you, I'm more fulfilled in my life than I am right now in terms of, what I would deem successful from a business point of view, because we're reinventing business as it goes along, like many people. And there's a lot of people who are doing really well right now. There's a lot of people who are, having a few challenges as they grow and adapt and improvise. And there's a lot of people completely, really reinventing their whole lives. And for me, that's always exciting, because, when have you had the time, if you're not at work, especially right now, when was the last time you had this much time to yourself when you weren't too busy being busy? And I got to tell you, I spent a whole part of my life, a big part of my life, being so busy being busy that even when I took some time out to relax and take some time to myself, the most amazing and interesting thing was I felt like I should be doing something. I couldn't sit still. I couldn't sit in that silence. I didn't know what to do with my time when all of a sudden you go from working 100 hours a week to working 30 maybe 40. What do you do with all that extra time? Right? And that was something that I found really interesting for me, and that happened a number of years ago. And, I really started looking at, what do I enjoy doing? What is it that makes my heart sing that is not related to work or making money or capitalistic ventures or entrepreneurial things? What do I love to do? Right? So when I took up golf again, I went back and did more fishing, working out, exercise, meditation was a big part, a lot of yoga. So I found in that time to really find myself. And I think this is one of the things that's happening within this global reset or this global awakening. We get to find ourselves. And I think that's probably the most important part of the gift of this pandemic, is to find yourself, to really center into who you are. Are you a human being? Are you a human doing? Right? So many of us, we're on this hamster wheel and we become human doings. Right? We're just do. Got to get this done. I got to do this. I got to do that. I should, I got to, I must, I have to. Does that sound familiar? I know it sounds familiar for me because I used to have that life. And when I took the opportunity to sit and be and to trust the flow and to have faith that everything happens for a reason, that I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, right here, right now, that this is exactly what's supposed to be. So if you're watching this, now live, if you're watching this some other time, this is exactly the message that you are meant to hear. Right? Because if you weren't working for money and you were doing what you loved and you can do anything in this world, money was not the issue. Because you always had enough, you always paid your bills, you're good. What is it that you would like to do? What is the magic for you that makes your heart sing, that feels good, is good for you, is good for others, serves the greater good? What is that? What is that for you? And this, I think, is a big part of the Great Awakening, because this is the time to find out. How many people have been literally, working a job you don't like, but you're working it because you need a job? How many people are working a job because your parents thought you should be working that, or being a doctor or lawyer, whatever that might be, or your wife or your husband, your partner, your spouse? Are you doing it because you want to? You're doing it because you have to? Are you doing it because you think you should be doing it? And these are interesting words in terms of our language. Because what if you were to actually choose to do whatever it is you're doing? Now, here's the interesting thing. Guess what? You are choosing, even though you hate what you might be doing or you love what you're doing, you made a choice. You just weren't aware of it. Because every second of every moment of every day, we are making a choice. As I speak to you here today, I'm making a choice out of the words that are coming out of my mouth. I'm making a choice of how I'm using my body, how if I'm shaking my head, going up and down, raising my arms. I'm making a choice. How aware are you of the choices you're making every single moment of every single day? I think that's always a little bit of magic when we start looking at that and then take responsibility for the choices we make, for the words we use, for the actions we take, right? Because most of us are making these choices unconsciously. We don't even know the choices we're making and why we're making them. But we're making them. And it's when we expand our consciousness, expand our awareness, and we start being able to see things from the outside looking in, and we become the observer, then we can make choices much more consciously based on who we are, what we believe in, what our mission is, right? What our purpose is. What's your life purpose? If you don't know, what a great time to find it. If you got some extra time on your hands because you're not working or not working as much, or you're looking to change things, what's the purpose of your life? I know, for if you've been watching this, hey, I'm Marc Caron, see, hear, feel, and know, that the purpose of my life is to be an inspiration to others while living a life of growth and contribution. And when I live my purpose, all sorts of other stuff, and I say stuff, crap, BS, it disappears because you're on point. You're doing what you love to do. Even what I'm doing here now, this is me living my purpose. Because if I can inspire one person who's watching this, whenever, wherever, however you're watching, to think a little bit differently, to make a different decision, to change some habits, to start working out, to change your job and your vocation, whatever that might be. If I've inspired you to even ask a different question, then that's me living my mission. And our mission doesn't have to be difficult or impossible. And quite frankly, I always recommend make it easy, make it fun, make it playful. Because when you can be living your mission just by being joyful, what if your mission was just to be joyful and spread cheer to others? How would that affect your life? How would that affect other people's lives? Imagine, what would your interaction be like, with a grocery store checker, or the bank teller, or the guy at the gas station, or the gal at the gas station? If your mission, your purpose, was to just spread joy and inspire people to be more happy and joyful, how can you do that? Right? Sincere, honest appreciation is one thing. Ask people how they're doing and actually mean it. That's a key part. There's so many different ways you can teach them something. You can do a course. You can do a Facebook Live. You can write a note to a stranger. You can give free hugs. And yes, you can give hugs. People do love hugging today. And right now, people are hug starved. So ask people if they're open for a hug. And man, if you can give a hug, man, give a hug, get a hug. Because we all need more hugs. But let's not be afraid, right? Let's work from in a spirit of love, peace, harmony, joy. Because I think these are the things that are making the difference for the world today. And I know there's a lot of people, again, at this time. We're going into the American Thanksgiving, and I hear that they banned all turkeys feeding 6 from Thanksgiving. That was a joke anyways, because We're not allowed here in Canada. We're not allowed to be convening with like more than 6 people. I don't know how that works because we have 9 people living in our home today. Actually, 8. So one of the advantages for us is we do live in a community home. So we have the opportunity for social and connection, and I'm really grateful at this time to be living in the way that I do, because I again, as I said, I know people who live by themselves who are bachelors and bachelorettes, and it's just, it wreaks havoc on them because they're completely isolated and alone. And this is the time when we need social closeness more than anything. So if there's anything that I've said here this evening that has inspired you or makes you think different, just know that it's okay. It's okay to be human. And if you're living in fear, I'm not going to say that's okay, because we are beyond that in today's world. We shouldn't be living in fear, right? There's enough resources and money and food that nobody should have to go without. It really is. And if there's going to be any kind of global reset in the world today, I'd like to see the global reset that redistributes the elite wealth and really eliminate starvation and suffering, and as much of the medical stuff as we possibly can, because there is enough resources in this world so that every human being can be taken care of. And I think it's our responsibility as human beings to really share the wealth, because to me, if you want more money, that's great. Hey guys, more money. One thing my grandmother always said to me, and the day I figured that out, it made sense. She used to always say, there's no pockets in a shroud, because you can't take it with you. You can have 1,000,000, 10 millions, billions, trillions of dollars. What good is it if you're not doing great work to change the world? And I think that that's the important part that we really need to be aware of today, is how can we make a difference? How can we help and serve our fellow man? How can we serve in a way that, again, is good for you, feels good, good for others, and serves the greater good? and that's contribution. Because contribution beyond ourselves, and I know I learned this, I learned this, I learned this in a big part of the work I've done over the past couple of decades, and that is, having an attitude of gratitude and being really grateful for what it is that we have, the life that we have. Because if you're watching this today, you're doing better than so many people in the large percentage of the world who don't have access to internet or a computer or a phone. Let's be grateful that we can take this in, and that I can sit here in my home and deliver this to you, because it's important, right? Not everybody has this ability. And within that comes contribution. How can we give back beyond ourselves to make a difference for all of mankind, for the people who come into our everyday lives? Do you have good words to share with them, words of inspiration? If it's giving that guy a couple of bucks on the corner because he needs some food, or even better yet, buy him some food or her some food. That's what I like to do. But generally, when people ask, I like to give, because there's that famous saying from one of those really popular books over the past couple of thousand years, ask and you shall receive. And if you need something, ask. Don't demand it. Ask in a pleasant and humble yet honest fashion, and you'd be surprised at what you'll get. And some people will say, how did you do that? How did you get that? I asked. So many people don't ask because they're afraid. They're afraid of being rejected, right? Because what does that mean when we're rejected? It means we're not what? We're not good enough, right? And what does that mean? If we're not good enough, it means we won't be what? We won't be loved. And when we recognize this innate little pattern of this little voice in our head and how it works, we're able to check in with that, go, hang on a second, I'm enough. Of course I deserve this. And I am love. So I give my love, right? I give love, I receive love. And we have to always keep listening and having that conversation with the voice in our head, because it's going to be telling us that all the time. When? All the time. But we don't negotiate with that voice in our head. We just recognize it was part of that monkey mind, that reptilian brain, that, fight or flight for survival of the fittest in the jungle. That's when that was really designed more than anything. Yet in our evolved consciousness and our evolved psychologies, it gets deeper and deeper than that. And that's one of the blessings and the curses of being human, is we have this deductive reasoning. We have this ability to think for ourselves. And we have this ability to tap into our souls, right? Into our spirit. And our spirit connects to us in a different way that we don't always listen to. Listen. Take some time in silence. This is the time to do it. Listen to your heart. Listen to your soul. Listen to those around you, right? And ask yourself, does this make sense? And ask yourself, what can I do to make it better, right? How can I live my life on purpose? How can I live my life on point? What is it I can do to change my environment, to change the way I feel? Because remember that triad, right? The triad. You want to change the way you feel? You want to change your emotional state? Change the way you use your body, your physiology, your biochemistry, what we eat, what we put into our body, right? Lots of water, organic, plant-based foods, which is one of the principles of PSSM as well, is the plant-based diet, right? It's really huge. Change your biochemistry, changes everything. Change your focus. We talked about focus earlier today, because whatever we focus on expands. Whatever we focus on is what we'll find evidence for. So let's be really mindful about what we're focusing on. Because even if something isn't very good, we can always look at what isn't necessarily very good and say, what can be good about this? What can I learn from this? How can I make it better? What needs to happen here? Right? So we can take a look at that focus. And then on the third side of that triad is our language, meaning, and story. Change your story, folks. Change your life. Super important. The story we tell ourselves really affects, our values, our beliefs, affects how we feel, and it affects our biochemistry, because thoughts are things, right? So as we use different words, we use different meanings, we tell a different story, those things will change your life. We can always take a look at a situation that happens. And again, it's a situation, a happening in our life. We tell an inspiring, thoughtful, learning story or meaning about that happening. It's going to serve us. Now, if we say something negative, terrible, that'll serve us. And we're going to feel the same, feel different ways based on the meaning and the story that we're using. So, choose these three things wisely, folks. Take care of your health. Take care of your body, your physiology, your biochemistry. Be really aware and really conscious to what you're focusing on, what you're paying attention to, because whatever you're looking for, you will find, my friends. And then choose your words, your language, and tell your story in a way that is empowering, that is freeing, that creates opportunity and abundance, right? That's the way to really navigate everything that's happening in the world today. Love yourself, love your family, love your friends. Be mindful and considerate, because there's a lot of people out there who, when they're wearing that mask, you can't see a lot of facial expressions either, so you don't necessarily know how people are doing. So strike up a conversation if you can. Care. People want to know you care. People don't care how much you know. They want to know how much you care. They want to know you have their best interest at heart. So I encourage you, as we leave here today from watching this and listening, find a way so that you can find the inner peace within yourself, and that you can share that with those who may need it more than you do, right? Because you're watching this. So if you're watching this, then, you're typically, my hallucination is, maybe in a different place or a step above or beside or whatever that is to, some of the people who aren't, been awakened to, this kind of methodology of thinking and a way of being. So be an inspiration. Be a beacon of light. Be a ray of hope. Be an example of faith and determination. And these are the things that I feel will help create a better day life for ourselves and for those around us. Because remember, it's that, pond, or that pebble in the pond, that one ripple, and how it ripples out. And that ripple keeps going and never really ends. It'll phase out a little. It will. Because it does. But it doesn't end. And we have the ability, each and every one of us as individuals, as leaders, as sons and daughters, as mothers and fathers, as brothers and sisters, as cousins and nieces and nephews, whatever that is, we have the ability, because this world, this life is ours, and it's what we make it, not what the media makes it, not what the governments make it, but it's what you make it. Because no matter what's going around behind us, in front of us, beside us, around us, above us, we have the ability to choose what that means for us and how we can use that to create a better everyday life, not just for ourselves, but for our family, our friends, our coworkers, all human beings, all the human race. We have the ability to make a difference. And don't ever deny the fact, my friends, that one person can make a difference. And that one person is you. That one person is me. Right? How we show up makes a difference. So show up with love, show up with peace, show up with grace, with playfulness, with humor. Show up with just an openness and a joy for life. And know that the only thing that really exists is this moment, and it's what we make it. And you can make it whatever it is you want. So let's all wake up. Depending on what part of the world you're at, you might be going to sleep. Please post your comments down below if you're watching. I'd love to answer and respond. And if anybody has any questions, any more feedback, anything of that nature, please feel free to reach out. I'd be happy to touch base and converse with you, because I am here to, again, purpose, right? What's your purpose of your life? I, Marc Caron, I see, I hear, I feel, I know that the purpose of my life is to be an inspiration to others while living a life of growth and contribution, and to have fun doing it. So go out there, live your mission, live your purpose, live with passion, live with freedom, and most of all, live with love. Until next week, everyone, it's your wake-up call. Take care.